The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. My hands shook as I gripped the edge of the kitchen table, staring at Ethan. His face was cold, like a stranger's. Not the man I'd loved for 3 years. His words hit me like a punch to the stomach. "I only married you to make Lisa jealous, Sarah. She's single now. I'm leaving." I couldn't breathe. The world spun around me, the walls of our tiny apartment closing in. The ultrasound picture from our babier little spark of hope, gone just weeks ago, was still taped to the fridge. I wanted to scream, to throw something to make him feel the pain tearing through me, but all I could do was whisper, "What?" He didn't even look sorry. He just grabbed his jacket from the couch, his eyes avoiding mine. "I'm sorry, Sarah. It's better this way. You'll be fine." And then he walked out, the door slamming behind him like the end of my world. I sank to the floor, my knees hitting the cold tiles. Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't cry. Not yet. My mind was stuck on his words, replaying them like a broken record. He only married me to make her jealous. Lisa, his ex, the woman he'd always talked about with a strange look in his eyes, like she was some perfect dream I could never measure up to. All this time, I thought he loved me. I thought we were building a life together, but I was just a pawn in his game. How did I get here? How did I end up so alone again, after everything I'd been through? The pain in my chest grew sharper, like a knife twisting deeper. I closed my eyes, trying to shut out the truth, but it wouldn't let me go. I was back to being that scared little girl, abandoned by everyone who was supposed to love her. And now, the one person I thought would stay forever had just walked out the door. What was I going to do now? Let's go back to the beginning, to the day I first met Ethan. I was 22, working at a small coffee shop in town, trying to save enough money to maybe, just maybe, go to community college one day. My life hadn't been easy. My parents left me when I was 5. I don't know why. One day, they were there, arguing in our tiny apartment. And the next, they were gone. No note, no goodbye. Just me, alone, until the neighbors noticed and called the police. After that, I bounced from foster home to foster home. Some were okay, some were awful, but none of them felt like home. I learned early on to keep my head down, to not expect too much. People always leave. But Ethan? He seemed different. I was wiping down tables at the coffee shop when he walked in, all charm and easy smiles. He had messy brown hair and bright green eyes that sparkled when he laughed. He ordered a black coffee, no sugar, and made a joke about how he didn't trust people who drank fancy lattes. I laughed, and for the first time in a long time I felt too seen. He came back the next day and the day after that. Soon we were talking every time he came in. He asked about my life, and I told him bits and pieces, not everything, but enough. He didn't seem to care that I was a foster kid with no family, no money, no big dreams. He said he liked my smile, that it made his day better. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? No one had ever looked at me the way he did, like I was special. We started dating a few weeks later. Ethan was sweet, always showing up with little gifts of flower he picked from someone's garden, a cheap bracelet from the dollar store. He made me feel like I mattered. For someone like me who'd spent her whole life feeling invisible, that was everything. I fell hard. Too hard, maybe. But there were signs, even early on, that I ignored, like how he'd talk about his ex Lisa more than he should. She was wild, he'd say, his voice soft, like he was remembering something wonderful. Always knew how to have fun. I'd nod, pretending it didn't bother me, but it did. Why was he thinking about her when he was with me? I pushed the feeling away, telling myself I was being silly. He was with me now, not her. That's what mattered. 6 months into dating, Ethan proposed. It wasn't Fancino ring, no big scene. We were sitting on a park bench, eating ice cream, when he turned to me and said, "Let's get married, Sarah. You and me, forever." My heart exploded with joy. Forever. That word meant everything to someone like me, who'd never had anything last. I said yes, without thinking twice. We got married at the courthouse a month later, just us, a judge, and a couple of strangers as witnesses. I wore a white dress I found at a thrift store, and Ethan wore his best jeans and a button-up shirt. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. I thought I'd finally found my family. My home? We moved into a tiny apartment, barely big enough for the two of us. Ethan worked at a car repair shop, and I kept my job at the coffee shop. We didn't have much, but we had each other. I started dreaming of a future, maybe a house one day, maybe kids. I let myself hope, even though I knew better. Hope is dangerous when you've been hurt as much as I have. Then I got pregnant. It wasn't planned, but when I saw those 2 pink lines on the test, I cried happy tears. Ethan seemed excited too, or at least I thought he did. He hugged me, spun me around, and said, "We're gonna be a family, Sarah." I believed him. I let myself believe we were going to be okay. But things started to change. Ethan got quieter, more distant. He'd stay out late, saying he was working overtime, but I'd smell beer on his breath when he came home. He stopped talking about the baby, stopped touching my growing belly. I told myself he was just nervous about becoming a dad. I made excuses for him, like I always did. Then, at 16 weeks, I lost the baby. The doctor called it a miscarriage, said it happens sometimes, that it wasn't my fault, but it felt like my fault. Like my body had betrayed me, taken away the one thing that could have made me whole. I cried for days, locked in our bedroom, while Ethan barely said a word. He didn't hold me, didn't cry with me. He just existed, like nothing had happened. I thought we'd get through it together. I thought we'd lean on each other, like couples are supposed to. But I was wrong, so wrong. A week after the miscarriage, Ethan started acting strange. He'd get texts and smile at his phone, then hide it when I walked into the room. He'd leave for hours without telling me where he was going. I tried to talk to him, but he'd brush me off. "I'm fine, Sarah. Stop worrying." But I wasn't fine. I was falling apart, and he didn't care. Then came the day everything shattered. I was still raw from losing the baby, barely holding myself together. Ethan came home from work, tossed his keys on the table, and looked at me with those cold eyes. That's when he said the words that broke me. "I only married you to make Lisa jealous, Sarah. She's single now. I'm leaving." I don't remember much after that, just the sound of the door slamming, just the emptiness of the apartment, just the ultrasound picture on the fridge, mocking me with a future that would never happen. I sat there on the kitchen floor for hours, maybe days. Time didn't matter anymore. Everything I'd built, everything I'd hoped for, was gone. I was alone again, just like I'd always been. But this time, it hurt worse, because I'd let myself believe I could have something better. The days that followed were a blur. I didn't go to work, I didn't eat, I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I'd done wrong. Was I not enough? Was I too broken, too damaged from my past? The questions ate at me, but there were no answers. Then, one morning, something shifted. I was looking at the ultrasound picture, still taped to the fridge, when I felt a spark of anger. Not at myself, but at Ethan. He'd used me. He'd lied to me. He'd taken my heart and stomped on it. I wasn't going to let him win. I wasn't going to let him destroy me. I got up, showered, and went to work for the first time in days. My boss, Maria, hugged me when she saw me. "You're stronger than you know, Sarah," she said. I didn't believe her, but I wanted to. I needed to. That's when I met Jake. He was a regular at the coffee shop, always ordering a cappuccino and reading a book in the corner. He was quiet, kind, with soft brown eyes that seemed to see right through me. He'd always been nice, but I'd never paid much attention. I was too wrapped up in Ethan. But now, with Ethan gone, I noticed Jake. He noticed me too. One day, he left a note on his table with his tip. It said, "You're stronger than you think. Keep smiling." I don't know why, but that note made me cry. Not sad tears, but something else, something like hope. I didn't know it then, but Jake would change everything. And Ethan? He'd learn soon enough that karma doesn't forget. The coffee shop was quiet that morning. The kind of quiet that makes you notice every little sound, the hum of the espresso machine, the clink of cups, the soft chatter of customers. I was wiping down the counter, trying to keep my hands busy so my mind wouldn't wander back to Ethan. His words still echoed in my head, sharp and cruel. I only married you to make Lisa jealous. Every time I thought about it, my stomach twisted. But I was done crying. I had to be. Jake was in his usual corner, sipping his cappuccino and reading a book with a worn-out cover. He came in almost every day, always polite, always leaving a good tip. I hadn't thought much of him before, but that note he left, "You're stronger than you think. Keep smiling," was stuck in my mind. It was the first kind thing anyone had said to me since Ethan walked out. I glanced at him and he looked up, catching my eye. He smiled. Not a big flashy smile like Ethan's, but a small, warm one that made me feel safe. I quickly looked away, my cheeks hot. What was I doing? My life was a mess. I didn't have time for smiles or butterflies. But Jake didn't let me hide. He walked up to the counter, his empty cup in hand. "Hey, Sarah," he said, his voice soft. "You okay? You seem different today." I froze. How did he know? I barely knew him, yet he could tell something was wrong. "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." He nodded, like he didn't quite believe me but wasn't going to push. "Well, if you ever need to talk, I'm a good listener." He set his cup down and slid another note across the counter with his tip. "See you tomorrow." I waited until he left before picking up the note. It said, "You don't have to be fine all the time. It's okay to not be okay." My throat tightened, and I shoved the note in my pocket before Maria, my boss, could see me tearing up. Life went on, even though it felt like it shouldn't. I kept working at the coffee shop, picking up extra shifts to cover the rent now that Ethan was gone. The apartment felt too big without him, even though it was tiny. His stuff was still there, his old sneakers by the door, his favorite mug on the counter. I couldn't bring myself to throw them out. Not yet. One day, Maria pulled me aside after my shift. "Sarah, you're working yourself to death," she said, her hands on her hips. "You need to take a break. Go out, live a little." "I can't," I said. "I need the money." She gave me a long look, the kind that said she saw right through me. "Money's important, but so is your heart. You're not alone, you know. You've got me, and that Jake guy seems pretty sweet." I rolled my eyes, but my face felt warm again. "He's just a customer, Maria." "Sure he is," she said with a grin. "But I've seen the way he looks at you, like you're the only person in the room." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just grabbed my coat and left. But Maria's words stuck with me. Was she right? Did Jake really look at me like that? And why did it make my heart race when I thought about it? A few days later, I was walking home from work when I saw Ethan. My heart stopped. He was outside a bar, leaning against the wall, laughing with a woman. She had long blonde hair and a loud laugh, and I knew instantly it was Lisa. The way he looked at her, the way he used to look at me before everything went wrong, it hurt more than I thought possible. I ducked behind a corner before he could see me, my hands shaking. I wanted to run home, to hide. But something kept me there, watching. Lisa was everything. I wasn't confident, loud, perfect. I could see why Ethan wanted her, why he'd used me to get to her. But then I saw something else. Ethan's laugh faltered when Lisa turned away to talk to someone else. His shoulders slumped, and for a second, he looked lost, like he wasn't sure of himself. It was the first time I'd ever seen him look anything less than confident. It made me wonder, was he really happy with her, or was he chasing something that didn't even exist? I walked home, my mind spinning. For the first time, I felt a tiny spark of something besides pain. Maybe Ethan wasn't as perfect as he seemed. Maybe he was the one who was broken, not me. The next morning, Jake was at the coffee shop again. This time, he didn't just sit in his corner. He came up to the counter while I was making his cappuccino and said, "Sarah, do you like music?" I blinked, caught off guard. Yeah, I guess. There's a free concert in the park this weekend, just some local bands, nothing fancy. Want to go with me? His eyes were hopeful, but not pushy. Like he'd be okay if I said no, but he really wanted me to say yes. My first instinct was to say no. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready to trust anyone again. But then I thought about Ethan, about how he'd thrown me away like I was nothing. I didn't want to let him control my life anymore. "Okay," I said, surprising myself. "Let's go." Jake's smile lit up the whole room. "Great. I'll meet you here Saturday at 6? I nodded, my heart doing that weird racing thing again. "Yeah, sounds good." Saturday came faster than I expected. I spent way too long picking out what to wear, settling on jeans and a blue sweater that made me feel a little less broken. When I got to the coffee shop, Jake was already there, wearing a flannel shirt and a nervous smile. "You look nice," he said, and I could tell he meant it. The concert was in a small park downtown, with fairy lights strung up in the trees and people spread out on blankets. The music was loud and cheerful, and for the first time in weeks, I felt myself relax. Jake and I sat on the grass, sharing a bag of popcorn he'd bought from a vendor. He told me about his job. He was a librarian, which explained the books he was always reading and how he grew up in a big family with 4 brothers who drove him crazy. "They sound nice," I said, a little jealous. I'd always wanted a big family. "They're loud," he said with a laugh. "But yeah, they're okay. What about you? You got any family?" I froze. I hadn't told anyone about my past, not since Ethan. But Jake's eyes were so kind, so open that I found myself talking. I told him about my parents leaving, about the foster homes, about feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. I didn't tell him about Ethan, though. Not yet. Jake listened, really listened, without interrupting or looking away. When I finished, he said, "That sounds really hard, Sarah. But you're here. You're still fighting. That's brave." I didn't feel brave, but his words made me want to be. We sat there, the music filling the silence, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. But life has a way of pulling you back down. A few days after the concert, I got a call from Ethan. My heart jumped when I saw his name on my phone. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want?" I said, my voice sharp. "Sarah, I messed up." His voice was shaky, not like him at all. "Lisa's not. It's not what I thought. Can we talk?" I wanted to hang up. I wanted to tell him to go to hell. But a tiny part of me, the part that still remembered how he made me feel when things were good, wanted to hear him out. "Fine," I said. "Tomorrow. At the coffee shop. But don't expect anything." I hung up before he could say more. My hands were shaking again, but this time, it wasn't just hurt. It was anger, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of power. What did Ethan want? Was he really sorry? Or was this another game? And why did I still care? As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I thought about Jake's smile, about the way he made me feel like I could be okay again. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let Ethan break me again. In the coffee shop, my stomach was in knots. Ethan was coming. I hadn't seen him since the night he walked out, leaving me on the kitchen floor with his cruel words ringing in my ears. Now he wanted to talk, and I didn't know if I was ready. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to make him feel the pain he'd caused. Another part, the part I hated, still wondered if he could fix this. If he could love me again. I wiped the counter for the 10th time, trying to keep my hands busy. Maria noticed and gave me a look. "You sure you want to do this, Sarah?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. You don't owe him anything." "I know," I said, but my voice shook. I need to hear what he has to say." She nodded, but her eyes said she didn't trust him. I didn't either, not really, but I had to know. Jake was there too, in his usual corner, reading a book. He hadn't said much since I told him about Ethan's call, but I could tell he was worried. He kept glancing at me, his brown eyes soft and steady. I wanted to tell him I'd be okay, but I wasn't sure I believed it myself. The bell above the door jingled, and there he was, Ethan. He looked different, tired, like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was messy, not in the charming way I used to love, but like he'd given up. He saw me and tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Sarah," he said, stepping toward the counter. "Can we sit?" I nodded, my throat tight. We sat at a small table near the window, away from Jake, but close enough that I could feel his quiet support. Ethan fidgeted with a sugar packet, not meeting my eyes. "I messed up," he said finally. "Lisa, she's not who I thought she was. I thought I wanted her, but I was wrong. I miss you, Sarah. I miss us." His words hit me like a wave, pulling me under. For a second, I saw the old Ethan, the one who brought me flowers, who made me laugh, who promised me forever. But then I remembered the truth. "You married me to make her jealous," I said, my voice low but sharp. "You used me, Ethan. You broke my heart." He flinched, like I'd slapped him. "I know. I was stupid. I thought I loved her, but it was just, I don't know, a fantasy. You're real, Sarah. You're good. I want to fix this." I stared at him, my heart pounding. A month ago, I would have given anything to hear those words. But now? Now I wasn't sure. I thought about Jake, about the concert, about the way he made me feel like I could breathe again. Ethan's promises felt like a trap, like a pretty lie I'd heard too many times before. "I need time," I said finally. "I don't trust you." He nodded, his shoulders slumping. "Okay, I'll wait. I'll prove it to you." He left after that, promising to call me later. I watched him go, my heart a jumbled mess. Did I want him back? Could I ever trust him again? I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing. I wasn't the same Sarah who'd begged him to stay. The next few days were a blur. Ethan texted me constantly, sending apologies, pictures of places we used to go, even a photo of the park where he proposed. Each message made my chest ache. But not in a good way. It was like picking at a scab, painful, but hard to stop. Jake noticed something was wrong. He didn't push, but he started staying longer at the coffee shop, helping me clean up after closing or bringing me little things like a cookie from the bakery down the street. One day, he showed up with a small plant in a pot, its leaves bright green and full of life. "For your apartment," he said, handing it to me. "I thought it could use some green." I smiled, my first real smile in days. "Thanks, Jake. It's perfect." He hesitated, then said, "You don't have to tell me what's going on, but I'm here, okay? No matter what." I wanted to tell him everything about Ethan, about the baby, about the hole in my heart that wouldn't close, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, I just nodded and said, "I know." A week later, I was walking home from work when I saw Lisa. She was outside the same bar where I'd seen her with Ethan, but this time she was alone, smoking a cigarette. She looked differentless, perfect, more tired. Her blonde hair was messy, and her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. I should have kept walking, but something made me stop. Maybe it was the anger still burning in my chest, or maybe it was curiosity. Before I could think better of it, I walked over. "Lisa?" I said. She looked up, startled. "Who are you?" "I'm Sarah," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Ethan's wife." Her eyes widened, and she dropped her cigarette. "Oh, you're her." She looked me up and down, like she was sizing me up. "He told me about you." My stomach twisted. "What did he say?" She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "He said you were sweet, but boring. Said he married you to get back at me. Guess it worked for a while." She shrugged. like it didn't matter. But her hands were shaking. I felt like I'd been punched, sweet but boring. Was that really how he saw me? Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because he's a liar, she said, her voice sharp. He came crawling back to me saying he loved me, but then he started talking about you again, how he missed you, how he messed up. I kicked him out. I don't need his games. I stared at her, my mind racing. Ethan had lied to both of us. He'd used me to hurt her, and now he was using her to get back to me. Or maybe he was just using us both, chasing something he'd never find. Thanks for telling me, I said finally. She nodded, then turned and walked away. I stood there, the cold night air biting my skin, and felt something shift inside me. I was done being Ethan's pawn. The next day, I told Jake about Ethan. Not everything, but enough. We were at the coffee shop after closing, sitting at a table with cups of tea we hadn't touched. I told him about the marriage, the baby, the way Ethan left. I told him about Lisa, about the lies. Jake listened, his face calm but his eyes full of something I couldn't quite naminga, maybe, or sadness. When I finished, he reached across the table and took my hand. His touch was warm, steady. You deserve better, Sarah, he said. You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are. My heart skipped a beat. No one had ever said anything like that to me before, not even Ethan. I wanted to believe him, but I was scared. What if I let myself trust again, and it all fell apart? Before I could say anything, Jake stood up. Come with me, he said, a spark in his eyes. I want to show you something. Curious, I followed him. He drove us to a small library on the edge of town where he worked. It was closed, but he had a key. Inside, it was quiet and warm, the shelves full of books that smelled like old paper and dreams. He led me to a corner where a small table was set up with a candle and a plate of cupcakes. I know it's not much, he said, scratching the back of his neck. But I thought you could use a little magic. I laughed, my heart lighter than it had been in weeks. You did this for me? Yeah, he said, his cheeks pink. You've been through a lot. I just wanted to make you smile. We sat there eating cupcakes and talking about everything and nothing books, movies, the silly things his brothers did. For the first time since Ethan left, I felt like I could breathe. Like I could be happy again. But then my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. I'm outside your apartment, the text said. We need to talk, now. My heart sank. I didn't want to see him, but I knew he wouldn't give up. And deep down, I needed to face him. I needed to end this for good. I have to go, I told Jake, my voice shaking. Ethan's at my place. Jake's face darkened, but he nodded. Do you want me to come with you? I shook my head. No. I need to do this alone. He didn't argue, but he squeezed my hand before I left. Be careful, Sarah, and call me if you need me. I nodded, my heart pounding as I drove home. Ethan was waiting for me, and I had no idea what he wanted, but I was done being afraid. Whatever happened next, I was ready. I pulled up to my apartment, my heart pounding like a drum. Ethan was leaning against the building, his hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I remembered. The streetlight cast shadows across his face, making him look older, worn out. I took a deep breath and got out of the car, my keys clutched tight in my hand. This was it. I wasn't going to let him pull me back into his games. Sarah, he said as I walked up, his voice soft, almost pleading. I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you. I was an idiot. Can we just talk? I crossed my arms, keeping my distance. You've said enough, Ethan. What do you want? He stepped closer, and I could see the desperation in his eyes. I want you back. Lisa was a mistake. I see that now. You're the one I love. His words stung, not because I believed them, but because I wanted to. Once. I wanted to believe he could love me, that I could have the family I'd always dreamed of, but I wasn't that girl anymore. You don't love me, I said, my voice steady. You never did. You used me to hurt Lisa, and now you're here because she doesn't want you. I'm not your backup plan. His face twisted, like he was trying to find the right words. That's not true. I messed up, okay? But we can fix this. We can start over. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping me. Start over? You broke me, Ethan. You made me think I was nothing. I lost our baby, and you didn't even care. You left me alone when I needed you most. He looked down, his shoulders slumping. I was scared, Sarah. I didn't know how to handle it. That's not an excuse, I snapped. You don't get to hurt people because you're scared. I deserve better. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then he nodded, like he knew he'd lost. I'm sorry, he whispered, and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the quiet night. I stood there, watching him go, and felt something lift off my chest. It wasn't just him leaving, it was me letting go of the pain, the hope, the dream of a life that was never real. I was free. The next morning, I woke up feeling different. Lighter. Like I could breathe again. I went to work, and the coffee shop felt brighter, the air sweeter. Maria noticed and grinned. You look like you again, Sarah. I smiled back. I feel like me again. Jake was there, as always, in his corner with a book. When he saw me, he walked over, his eyes searching mine. Everything okay? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, I told Ethan we're done. For good. His face softened, and he smiled, that warm, steady smile that made my heart skip. I'm proud of you. We didn't say much more, but we didn't need to. Jake stayed after closing, helping me stack chairs and sweep the floor. We talked about silly Thingshe's favorite books, my love for cheesy pop songs. It was easy, like slipping into a warm blanket. For the first time, I let myself think about what could be, not what was. Weeks turned into months, and life started to feel good again. Jake and I grew closer. We went to more concerts, took walks in the park, even started a little book club just for the two of us. He never pushed me to be anything I wasn't, never made me feel like I had to prove myself. He just saw me, all of me, the broken parts and the strong ones, and he stayed. One night, we were at the library after hours, sitting in his favorite corner with a pile of books between us. He looked at me, his eyes serious but soft. Sarah, I need to tell you something. My heart jumped, but not in a bad way. What? He took a deep breath. I'm falling for you. I've been falling for you for a long time. I don't want to scare you, but I want you to know how I feel. I stared at him, my throat tight. I'd been hurt so many times, abandoned by everyone who was supposed to love me. But Jake was different. He was kind, steady, real. I reached for his hand, my fingers trembling. I'm falling for you too, I whispered. He smiled, and then he kissed me, soft and slow, like he was promising to never let me go. And for the first time, I believed it. Meanwhile, Ethan's life was falling apart. I heard bits and pieces through the grapevine small towns talk, and news travels fast. Lisa had dumped him for good, calling him out for his lies. He'd lost his job at the car repair shop after showing up drunk one too many times. His friends stopped calling, tired of his excuses. He'd moved into a cheap motel on the edge of town, alone and broke, chasing a life that didn't want him anymore. I didn't feel happy about it, not exactly, but I felt justice. He'd hurt me, used me, thrown me away. Now he was facing the consequences of his choices. Karma had found him, just like I'd hoped. A year later, I was standing in the park where Ethan had proposed, but this time, I wasn't alone. Jake was with me, holding my hand as we watched the sunset. I wasn't the same Sarah who'd stood here before, broken and desperate for love. I was stronger now, braver. I'd built a life I was proud of, a new job at the library with Jake, a tiny apartment filled with plants and books, a heart that was healing. Sarah, Jake said, turning to me. He was holding a small box, his hands shaking just a little. I know you've been through a lot. I know trust isn't easy for you. But I want to spend my life making you smile, Will you marry me? Tears filled my eyes, but they were happy tears. I thought about my parents, who left me, the foster homes, where I never belonged, Ethan, who broke my heart, and now Jake, who saw me, who stayed. Yes, I said, my voice breaking. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring on my finger, a simple band with a tiny blue stone, and kissed me as the sun dipped below the horizon. The park was quiet, the air warm, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was home. Our wedding was small, just like my first one, but so different. Maria was there, crying happy tears. Jake's brothers came, loud and laughing, welcoming me like I'd always been part of their family. We got married in the library, surrounded by books and fairy lights, with a cupcake tower instead of a cake. I wore a white dress I'd picked out with Maria, and Jake wore a suit that made him look like a prince. When he said, "I do," his eyes never left mine, and I knew he meant it. After the wedding, we moved into a little house on the edge of town, with a garden where I planted flowers and herbs. I started taking classes at the community college, something I'd always dreamed of. Jake cheered me on, helping me study, making me laugh when I got stressed. We weren't rich, but we were happy. We were enough. As for Ethan, I heard he'd left town, chasing another dream that wouldn't come true. He'd lost everything, his job, his friends, his pride. I didn't hate him anymore. I didn't need to. He was gone, and I was free. I looked at Jake sometimes, when he was reading or laughing or just sitting quietly beside me, and I thought about how far I'd come. I'd been abandoned, broken, used, but I'd survived. I'd found love, real love, the kind that doesn't hurt or lie. I'd found a family, not just in Jake, but in Maria, in his brothers, in the life we were building together. The ultrasound picture was still in a box in my closet, a reminder of the baby I'd lost, but also of the strength I'd found. I wasn't defined by my pain anymore. I was defined by my choices, my courage, my love. And as I stood in our garden, watching Jake water the plants, I knew I'd finally found my home. Not a place, but a person, a life, a future, and no one could take that away from me. Thank you so much for sticking with me through my story, the hurt, the heartbreak, and the hope I found in the end. It means the world to know you were here with me. Please hit that subscribe button. There's more stories like mine coming, full of twists, drama, and maybe even a little love. Don't miss out. Join me for the next one.